I want to be careful about how I say this because I know it's a sensitive topic, and I don't want you to mishear what I'm actually saying. I'm not saying depression isn't real. It is. It's a serious clinical condition that affects millions of people, and if you are genuinely clinically depressed, the most important thing you can do is talk to a professional and get proper support. That's not what this video is about. This video is about another thing. This video is about directionlessness, and the way it masquerades as depression in a way that has an entire generation of young men treating the wrong problem. Let me describe something, and I want you to tell me honestly. How much of this sounds familiar? You wake up and the first feeling of the day is heaviness. Not physical tiredness necessarily, just a kind of weight that sits on you before you've even fully opened your eyes. And the day stretches out in front of you, and nothing in it feels particularly worth getting up for. So you stay in bed longer than you should. And when you do get up, you drift from the bed to the couch, from the couch to your phone, from your phone to food, from food back to the couch. Hours pass and you haven't really done anything, and you feel vaguely guilty about that, but not guilty enough to change it, because changing it would require energy you genuinely don't seem to have. And you feel empty. Not sad exactly, not in tears, just hollow. Like something is missing, but you can't name what it is. And you've started calling that depression. Or at least thinking of it that way, because what else do you call feeling like this for weeks or months at a time with no obvious external reason for it? But here's the question I want you to sit with. When was the last time you had something real to work toward? Something that was genuinely yours, a direction, a project, a goal that mattered to you. Not to your parents, not to your employer, not to whoever you're trying to impress, but to you. Something that made you want to get out of bed in the morning, not because you had to, but because there was something waiting for you that you actually cared about. Directionlessness is an existential condition. It's what happens to a human being, specifically to a young man, when he has no clear answer to the question of what he is building his life toward. When there is no project, no purpose, no goal, no direction that is genuinely his own. When the days are full of activity but empty of meaning. When he is busy but not purposeful, occupied but not engaged, and the feeling that produces, the heaviness, the emptiness, the low energy, the inability to find motivation for things that used to feel easier. That feeling is not a malfunction. It is actually your brain working correctly. It is your brain telling you that something fundamental is missing, that you are not living in alignment with what human beings, specifically young men, are built to need. I want to talk about something specific that I think is making this significantly worse for Gen Z in particular. You grew up in a world that told you that your feelings are the most important thing, that if you feel bad, something must be wrong, and that something wrong must have a name and a treatment and a solution that comes from outside of you. And mental health awareness, which is genuinely important and has done a lot of good, has also created this side effect where young people are significantly more likely to pathologize normal human experiences than any generation before them. Feeling lost in your early 20s is not a disorder, it is the most normal thing in the world. You are at the beginning of your adult life trying to figure out who you are and what you want and what you're building toward. That is supposed to feel uncertain and uncomfortable and sometimes heavy. That discomfort is not depression. It is the discomfort of being at the beginning of something that hasn't taken shape yet. But instead of sitting with that discomfort and using it as fuel to find direction, instead of letting the emptiness point you toward what's missing, a lot of young guys are medicating it, scrolling through it, sleeping through it, and waiting for it to lift on its own. It won't lift on its own. Not because it's a clinical condition that requires treatment, but because the thing that lifts it is direction. And direction doesn't arrive, you have to choose it. Let me tell you about what actually happens to a person when they find direction. Because I think you felt this before, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Think about a time in your life when you were genuinely working towards something that mattered to you. A project, a goal, a period where you had something real to show up for, where the days had shape because there was something in them worth doing. Remember how different you felt? Not just happier necessarily, but more alive, more present, more like yourself. The mornings felt different because there was a reason to get up that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with genuine engagement with something that mattered. The energy that seems completely absent right now was somehow available because it was being called for by something real. That wasn't a coincidence. That was direction doing what direction does. Direction doesn't just give you something to do. It gives your brain the chemical environment it needs to function properly. The dopamine of working toward a meaningful goal. The serotonin of making real progress. The sense sense of identity and self-worth that comes from being someone who is building something rather than someone who is just existing. All of the things you've been trying to manufacture through routines and productivity hacks and wellness practices. All of those things come naturally and abundantly when you have genuine direction, and none of them fully work without it. So how do you find direction when you genuinely don't know what direction to choose? Because I know that's the question sitting underneath all of this. It's easy to say find your direction, but if you knew what your direction was, you'd probably already be going in it. Here's the most honest answer I can give you. You don't find direction, you build it. And you build it by starting somewhere, anywhere, and paying attention to what happens when you do. Pick one thing, not your passion, not your calling, not the thing that's going to define your entire life and career and identity. Just one thing that is slightly more interesting to you than the nothing you're currently doing. One skill you're mildly curious about. One project that has been sitting in the back of your mind. One direction that feels slightly more like yours than the others. And start moving in that direction, imperfectly, without certainty, without knowing if it's the right one. Because here's what happens when you start moving even in a slightly wrong direction. You get information, real information that you cannot get from thinking. Information about what engages you and what doesn't, about what makes time disappear and what makes it drag, about what kind of work makes you feel more like yourself and what kind makes you feel less. And that information, accumulated through actual doing rather than endless thinking, is how direction gets found, not through introspection alone, through movement. The heaviness you've been carrying is not a life sentence. It is not proof that something is fundamentally broken inside you. It is not evidence that you need to be fixed or medicated or talked through your childhood. It is your brain, the most sophisticated biological system in the known universe, telling you in the clearest language it has available that you are a person built for purpose who is currently living without one. And the answer to that is not a diagnosis. It is a direction. Pick one, start today, move imperfectly towards something that is even slightly yours, and pay attention to how the heaviness shifts the moment you do.